I think I didn't do anything wrong, just kept quiet about what would have ruined everything. For years, I hid the truth about my son's real father. It wasn't guilt that gave me away. It was his eyes, the same stormy grey as another man's. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Iris Valen, and I don't think I did anything wrong, at least, not in the way everyone says I did. People act like hiding the truth makes you evil, but sometimes it's the only way to keep things peaceful. My husband, Ethan, used to say honesty was the foundation of marriage. I used to nod, smile, and think, that's what people without real problems say. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. Liam had already moved on. Ethan was steady, safe, ready to build a family. It wasn't a choice between love and lies. It was survival. For years, everything worked. Aiden had Ethan's last name. My family adored him, and I told myself secrets only matter if someone asks the right question. Then, one morning, Ethan looked at our son and didn't smile. He just stared, the kind of stare that makes your stomach turn before your mind catches up. He didn't ask right away. He just started noticing things, receipts, photos, the color of Aiden's eyes in daylight. I told myself he'd get over it, but quiet men don't get over things. They prepare. I should have known the silence meant something was coming. When people talk about secrets, they make it sound dramatic. Shadows, guilt, sleepless nights. But my secret never felt like that. It felt like control. It felt like peace I built with my own two hands. For 4 years, I told myself I had done the right thing. I had chosen stability over chaos, safety over heartbreak. I had chosen Ethan. I met Ethan when I was 26 and tired of chasing men who couldn't keep promises. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who listened before answering. Liam was the opposite, charming, unpredictable, the kind who made every decision sound like an adventure. One promised me forever, the other promised me now. I picked forever. Or at least, that's what I told everyone. The truth was, I never really picked. The day I found out I was pregnant, I sat on the edge of our bathtub, staring at the test like it might spell out a name. Ethan's face flashed in my mind, steady and proud, talking about building a family someday. Then Liam's laugh cut through that image, quick and reckless, the sound that always made me forget logic. The math didn't work in Ethan's favor. I remember whispering, please just let it be close enough. And for a long time it was. Aiden was born with dark hair and grey eyes, soft grey at first, like a cloud before rain. Everyone said babies change, that colours shift, and I clung to that like faith. Ethan smiled through it all, calling him perfect, his little boy. I smiled too, pretending not to see what he couldn't yet. Every photo we took felt like sealing the lie tighter, pressing it into memory. 4 years later, I still thought I had outrun the truth. Ethan worked long hours in software development, the kind of job that turned days into quiet routines. I managed HR for a mid-sized company, meetings, policies, pretending to care about employee wellness while ignoring my own. Life had rhythm, dull but safe. I told myself dull was good. Dull meant the storm was behind me. Then, one morning, Ethan started looking at Aiden differently. It wasn't obvious at first, just small pauses. He'd study Aiden's face like he was trying to place where he'd seen it before. At breakfast, he'd watch the way our son tilted his head when he thought. He'd say things like, he's really growing into his looks, and I'd laugh too loud, say something about him taking after my side of the family. One night, after Aiden was asleep, Ethan mentioned it again. He said, "It's strange, isn't it? None of your family has grey eyes." I said, "Color genetics are weird." He nodded but didn't respond. The silence felt heavier than usual. That's when I noticed the folder. It was sitting on his desk, half tucked under his laptop. The label said household. I knew Ethan wasn't the type to organize things that way. He was more of a mental notes kind of man. But this folder was different. Neat, structured, with a pen clipped perfectly to the top. I didn't open it. Not yet. But I thought about it all day. Later that week, I caught him taking photos of the electric bill. When I asked why, he said, "Just backing things up." His tone was light, but his hands moved too carefully, like someone trying not to show what they were really doing. I told my sister, Clara, about it over coffee. She laughed and said, "He's probably planning a surprise for you. Maybe a trip." I smiled like I believed her, but that night when Ethan's phone lit up with a calendar alert, downtown 10:45 a.m., my stomach twisted. It wasn't a holiday, not an appointment we shared, just that one line. Still, I told myself it was nothing. At work, I tried to focus on my team. The office buzzed with gossip and artificial cheer. Mrs. Tannis, my boss, stopped by my desk, tapping her nails on the divider. "You look tired, Iris," she said. I told her I'd been up with Aiden. She smiled knowingly and said, "Motherhood always shows on the honest ones." I wanted to laugh. If only she knew how dishonest I really was. That afternoon, Liam messaged me for the first time in almost 2 years. Just one line. "Saw your photo on LinkedIn. You look the same." My hands froze above the keyboard. I typed, "Thanks, how's life?" and deleted it before sending. Then I stared at Aiden's picture pinned beside my monitor. Those same grey eyes, calm and deep, staring right back. That evening, Ethan came home early. He seemed fine, maybe even cheerful. He played with Aiden, helped him stack blocks, asked about his day in that patient way he always did. I started to relax. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe guilt was making me see things that weren't there. After dinner, I was washing dishes when Ethan joined me at the sink. "You know," he said casually, "Aiden reminds me of someone." My hand stilled in the water. I said, "Every kid reminds someone of someone." He nodded again, drying his hands. "Maybe I'll figure it out one day." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the faint hum of the printer down the hall. It wasn't new. Ethan often printed things for work, but that night, it sounded different, slower, deliberate. When I walked past the study, the door was half closed, and through the crack, I saw the glow of his laptop screen. Lines of text, a folder tree on the side. Archive A, Archive B. I told myself to stop snooping. I wasn't the villain here. I had built this family, carried it, protected it. Without me, there wouldn't even be an us. The next morning, Ethan was gone before sunrise. A note on the counter read, "Breakfast for you and Aiden in the fridge." His handwriting was neat, but smaller than usual, like he didn't want to take up too much space. I went to wake Aiden, kissed his forehead and whispered, "You look like me, okay?" Like me. He smiled in his sleep, and for a moment I believed it. That afternoon, my mother-in-law Ruth stopped by unannounced. She had that polite expression she wore when she wanted to ask something delicate. "He's quiet lately," she said, pouring herself tea. "Everything all right between you two?" "He's fine," I said, forcing a laugh. "He's just stressed from work." She looked at Aiden, who was building towers on the floor. "He has your eyes," she said softly. It was meant as a compliment, but her tone made me nervous. That evening, Ethan came home later than usual. He kissed Aiden goodnight, asked if I'd eaten, then sat at the table scrolling on his phone. The air felt off again, too calm, too steady. I wanted him to yell, accuse, anything. Silence scared me more than shouting. I said, "If you have something to say, just say it." He looked up, expression unreadable. "Not yet," he said. "Not until everything's clear." "Clear about what?" He didn't answer. He just rinsed his mug, placed it upside down next to mine, and walked out of the room. Later, I opened his drawer. I told myself it wasn't snooping, it was protecting myself. Inside, I found the USB, a single label on white tape. April. My hand shook as I put it back exactly as I'd found it. I didn't even breathe until I stepped away. That night, I called Clara again. "He's acting weird," I said, "like he's planning something." "Maybe he's finally getting professional help," she joked. "You've been saying he bottles things up." "You don't get it," I whispered. "He's collecting." Collecting what? I didn't know how to answer. The next day at the office, I couldn't focus. During lunch, Mrs. Tannis mentioned seeing Ethan at a notary service downtown. "So organized, that man," she said. My stomach dropped. I smiled and changed the subject. When I came home, Ethan was calm again, almost gentle. He helped with dinner, asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I wanted to believe the tension was gone. But as we sat on the couch, he kept glancing at his phone every few minutes, the screen lighting up with reminders I couldn't see. When Aiden was asleep, I asked if we were okay. He looked at me for a long moment before saying, "You tell me." I laughed too fast. "You're the one acting strange." He nodded, his voice steady. "Maybe I'm just trying to understand what kind of family I'm living in." The way he said, "what kind," made my chest tighten. I wanted to tell him the truth. For a second, I almost did. Then I thought of Aiden sleeping down the hall, of Liam's grey eyes, of the fragile little world I had built. I said instead, "We're fine. You're imagining things." He smiled faintly, like someone who had already heard that lie too many times. Then he stood up, took his mug from the counter, and rinsed it again. The water ran for a long time. When he finally went to bed, I checked his calendar app. The newest entry blinked at me from the screen. Meeting, personal. Friday 11:10 a.m. I stared at it until the phone went dark. I told myself secrets only matter when someone asks the right question. But Ethan wasn't asking anymore. He was waiting, and that was worse. The next week felt like living under glass. Everything looked normal from the outside, but the air was thin, the walls invisible, and I couldn't breathe the way I used to. Ethan wasn't angry. He wasn't warm either. He just operated in this calm, polite rhythm that made me feel like a guest in my own marriage. He still made coffee in the morning, still set my mug beside his. But there was a new distance in every small act. He stopped calling me Eerie. Now it was just hey or you. And when I asked what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing to talk about yet." The yet was what scared me. At work, I threw myself into projects like a woman trying to outrun something closing in. HR season meant chaos, training sessions, scheduling, new hires. But I liked chaos better than quiet. Quiet gave me space to think, and thinking was dangerous now. During one of our lunch breaks, my coworker Elise leaned over the cubicle wall and said, "You and Ethan doing okay? You've been posting all these solo selfies lately." I smiled like it was a silly question. He hates photos. Someone has to keep the feed alive. She laughed, but it sounded cautious, the kind of laugh people use when they're unsure if they've stepped too close to gossip. I turned back to my screen, pretending to type, and scrolled to my gallery instead. Picture after picture of me and Aiden at the park, me at work events, me smiling too wide. Not one of Ethan. That night, Ethan came home late. He didn't explain, and I didn't ask. I was in bed scrolling through comments on one of my posts. "Such a beautiful family." "That boy looks just like you," when I noticed him standing by the window, looking out at the streetlights. His reflection in the glass didn't move for a long time. He finally said, "Did you ever talk to Liam again after you left that job?" The question was so calm it didn't sound like a question. My throat went dry. "No," I said. "Why would I?" He turned his head just enough to meet my eyes. "Just asking." I wanted to ask how he even remembered that name, but something in his face stopped me. Instead, I told him he was overthinking again. He nodded once and said, "Maybe I am." Then he went to the guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between the faint clicks of his keyboard in the next room. 2 days later, we had dinner with friends at a family restaurant downtown, Marcus and Faye. the couple we'd known since before we married. I thought it would help to be social, to show everyone things were fine. I even wore the blue dress Ethan once said made me look put together, but kind. The restaurant was noisy, full of laughter and clinking glasses. Marcus asked Ethan about work. He said it was steady. Faye complimented Aiden's photo I'd posted that morning. "He's growing up so fast," she said. "Those eyes, just stunning." I laughed and said, "He definitely didn't get them from Ethan. It slipped out before I could stop it." Everyone laughed except Ethan. He set down his fork slowly. "Guess not," he said. I tried to play it off. "Oh, come on, you know what I mean. Mine are dark, his are light, simple genetic stuff." Faye smiled awkwardly. Marcus cleared his throat and changed the subject, but I felt the shift. It was small, quiet, but there. Ethan didn't look angry. He just looked settled, like he'd just confirmed something. Later, when we were leaving, he walked ahead holding Aiden's hand. I could see the side of his face under the streetlight, calm and unreadable. I called his name. He didn't answer. At home, after Aiden went to bed, I told him he'd embarrassed me by freezing up at dinner. He said, "You embarrassed yourself." I told him he was cruel. He said, "Truth usually feels that way." I hated that tone, the one that sounded like patience pretending to be kindness. I told him I was done with his games. He said, "I didn't start any." When I turned away, I noticed his laptop was open on the counter. A spreadsheet glowed on the screen. Columns of dates, short notes beside them. My name appeared in several rows. I leaned closer, heart pounding. One cell read, Deck 5, restaurant comment, witnesses, M.F. He'd logged the dinner. I shut the laptop fast, my hands trembling. He must have heard the sound because he came back into the room. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Looking for photos," I said quickly. He studied me for a few seconds, then said softly, "Everything gets saved eventually." That night, he slept in the guest room again. The next morning, my phone buzzed while I was getting Aiden ready for daycare. A text from Liam. "Saw your post. The boys got your look." I stared at it until the letters blurred, then deleted the message before Ethan could see. At drop-off, one of the teachers said, "He's got such unusual eyes. Are they grey or blue?" "Grey," I said, forcing a smile. "Like his grandfather's." "Oh. On your side or your husband's?" "Mine," I lied. When I got home, Ethan's car was still in the driveway. He was in the kitchen pouring coffee. "You're late today," I said. "Personal morning," he replied. On the counter beside him was a small folder, labeled Utilities. He noticed me looking. "Trying to stay organized," he said. I laughed, pretending not to care. But when he left, I opened the folder. Inside were scanned copies of bills, bank statements, even grocery receipts. At the back was a small sticky note that said, "Bring forms." Forms for what? That evening, Clara stopped by to drop off a sweater I'd left at her place. She noticed the tension immediately. "What's going on here? You both look like extras in a crime show." "He's acting strange," I said. "All these folders, schedules, meetings." She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe he's getting his will sorted. You know how paranoid he gets." "It's not paranoia," I snapped. "It's deliberate." "Then maybe you should ask him straight out." I shook my head. "No. That gives it power. If I act normal, he'll come back to normal too." Clara sighed. "You're still trying to manage the narrative, huh? Someone has to." When she left, I sat alone in the kitchen. The house hummed around me. The fridge, the clock, the faint sound of Ethan typing in the other room. Everything ordinary, everything wrong. I poured wine and scrolled through my messages. One from Mrs. Tannis blinked at the top. Reminder, Friday 11 a.m., HR follow-up, please confirm. I replied, confirmed. Then I noticed another notification. File uploaded successfully, cloud backup. It wasn't mine. It was Ethan's shared account. I opened it. Folders again, household, bank, archive A, and now a new one. Photos. Inside were dozens of images, Aiden playing, me at work events, screenshots of my social media posts, comments highlighted. My chest tightened. I slammed the laptop shut. That night, Ethan came home calm, almost tender. He asked if I'd like to go out over the weekend, maybe a walk at the park. His voice was too light, too even. I said, sure. He smiled faintly. Good. We should look like a family again. The word look lodged in my mind. Saturday came. The park was crowded. Families, dogs, children everywhere. I tried to enjoy it, but Ethan's quiet was suffocating. Aiden ran ahead, chasing bubbles. Ethan watched him closely, expression unreadable. A woman from my old job, Nora, approached, waving. Iris, I didn't know you lived nearby. Her eyes flicked to Aiden. Oh, wow, he looks just like Liam's boy. Remember him? My smile froze. I think you're mistaken. She laughed awkwardly. Oh, my bad. I just meant similar features. Ethan didn't say anything. He just looked at me. When we got home, I tried to make it sound funny. Can you believe her? Some people have no filter. Ethan said, people see more than we think. You're not really listening to her, are you? I don't need to, he said. I listen to you. His phone buzzed then, and I caught the preview. File received, storage options. That night, I dreamed about papers, thick, official-looking papers sliding under the door. The next morning, he was already gone, but his mug was spotless beside mine again. On the fridge calendar, a new note appeared. Meeting, personal 11:20. I stood there staring at it, unable to move. Aiden tugged on my sleeve and asked if Daddy was mad. I said, no, baby. He's just busy. But the words felt false the moment they left my mouth. Ethan wasn't busy. He was building something silent, organized and sharp. I woke up the next morning, already angry. Not sure why. Maybe because I could feel the control slipping from my hands, or maybe because Ethan's calm made me feel small. I kept waiting for him to crack, to yell, to accuse me of something I could deny. But he never did. He just kept collecting, quietly, like a man rearranging his thoughts into evidence. That Sunday, I decided to push things back to normal. I made pancakes, opened all the blinds, turned on the radio. Aiden clapped when I flipped the first one perfectly. When Ethan walked in, I smiled too brightly and said, we're having family breakfast today. No laptops allowed. He nodded, poured coffee and sat down. Sounds good. For a second, I thought maybe it worked. Maybe silence was just his way of thinking. But then I noticed him watching Aiden again, really studying him. When Aiden laughed, Ethan's eyes softened, but not in the way they used to. It was the kind of look people give to things they've already decided to let go. I said, what are you thinking about? He said, just how much he's growing up. He's a smart kid, I said, trying to sound casual. Ethan nodded. He is. Smart enough to notice things we pretend not to. The fork slipped out of my hand and clattered on the plate. Aiden giggled. I laughed too, but my heart was pounding. After breakfast, Ethan took Aiden to the backyard. I watched them through the window, Ethan steadying the bike, Aiden pedaling, both of them quiet in their own world. I should have felt touched. Instead, I felt cornered. Later that afternoon, I went through Ethan's desk again. The folder labeled Utilities was still there, but beside it now sat another one. Bank. I opened it. Inside were photocopies of statements. Mine, his, joint accounts. Some pages had small notes in the margins. Dates, initials, highlighted transactions. Next to one highlighted line, ATM withdrawal, I saw a note. Day she called out sick. My mouth went dry. I heard footsteps in the hall and slammed the drawer shut, just as Ethan entered the room. He stopped, glanced at the desk, then at me. Looking for something? He asked. Just a pen, I said quickly. He walked past me, opened another drawer, took out a pen, and handed it to me. His expression never changed. "Here you go," he said, then locked the desk again. The click of the key echoed in the quiet. That evening, I met Clara for dinner. She noticed my mood immediately. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," she said. "Ethan's being impossible," I told her. "He's got folders and files and notes. He's acting like an accountant for our marriage." Clara frowned. "What's he writing about?" "I don't know. Everything. He's got dates and labels. It's creepy." She stirred her drink. "Maybe he's documenting things in case you two split." I laughed, too loud. "He wouldn't. He's not like that." "You sure? Because it sounds like preparation, not organization." I hated how calm she sounded. "He wouldn't do that to me." She tilted her head. "You did lie to him for years, Iris. You don't understand. I did it for everyone's good." She sighed. "That's what everyone who gets caught says." I wanted to leave right then, but I didn't. I needed her to tell me I was still the reasonable one. Instead, she just said, "Maybe you should talk to him before he stops being polite." When I got home, Ethan was in the living room sorting laundry. I stood in the doorway watching him. He didn't look up. "We need to talk," I said. "We do," he replied without stopping. "Then say something." He folded another shirt. "There's nothing left to say that you'd believe." I laughed sharply. "You think I'm lying about something?" He looked at me then, calm as ever. "I think you believe your lies so deeply they feel like truth. That's rich coming from someone sneaking around taking notes on his wife." He didn't respond. Just folded the last shirt, stacked it neatly, and walked out of the room. That night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I unlocked his cloud drive, using the password I knew he thought I didn't remember, our wedding date. Inside was a new folder titled Follow Up. The files had names like Video Auzo 5, Call Transcript, Receipt Hinste 2. My hands shook as I opened one. It was an audio file. My own voice filled the room. I was laughing, saying something about keeping things under control. Then Liam's voice, faint but unmistakable, said, "He still doesn't know, does he?" The file cut off. My heart dropped. That call was from years ago, back when I was pregnant. How did Ethan get it? I had deleted everything from my phone. I closed the laptop and stared at the blank screen. My reflection looked like someone else's, pale, wide-eyed, cornered. In the morning, Ethan acted normal again. He made pancakes this time, poured coffee, asked about my day. I could barely speak. Every word felt like a test. After he left for work, I dropped Aiden off at daycare and drove to the supermarket. I parked, but didn't get out. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. Liam again. "You okay?" "Been a while. Heard things are weird at home." I typed back, "Don't contact me again." He replied, "Too late for clean exits, huh?" I blocked him. That afternoon, I decided to check Ethan's car. He'd left it in the driveway. I opened the glove compartment, expecting the usual, manual, charger, napkins, but found a small envelope instead. Inside was a photo of Aiden at his last daycare event. On the back, Ethan had written, "Keep this safe. Truth always shows in daylight." I sat there trembling, the edges of the paper damp in my hands. When he came home that night, I couldn't pretend anymore. I confronted him in the kitchen. "What are you doing, Ethan? Are you trying to make me feel insane?" He wiped his hands on a towel and said calmly, "No, I'm trying to stay sane. By spying on me, recording me, by documenting facts," he said. "They don't change when someone cries over them. You're sick." Maybe, but not dishonest. I wanted to slap him, to make him react, but he just stood there, quiet and controlled. Then Aiden ran in holding a drawing. 3 stick figures, all smiling. He said, "That's Mommy, Daddy, and me." Ethan crouched down beside him and smiled faintly. "That's beautiful, buddy." I turned away before he could see me cry. Later that night, I overheard Ethan talking softly on the phone. I couldn't hear words, just tones, measured, professional. When he hung up, I stepped into the hallway. "Who was that?" I asked. He said, "Follow-up call." "For what?" "Just keeping things clear." He walked past me, straight to the study, and closed the door. The printer started again. Soft, steady. I couldn't help it. I pressed my ear to the wood. The machine whirred, then stopped. I heard the faint click of a stapler. In the morning, there was a new envelope on the counter with my name written neatly on top. My hands shook as I opened it, but inside was nothing but a grocery list. Milk, apples, detergent. I laughed out loud, half relief, half hysteria. He was playing with me. I took Aiden to the park later to clear my head. A few other parents were there, chatting near the benches. One of them, a woman I didn't know well, smiled at Aiden and said, "Your little boy has the most beautiful eyes, just like that man who used to come by here sometimes. What was his name?" "Liam?" My whole body froze. "You must be mistaken," I said. She frowned. "No, I'm sure I saw him with you once. Last year, maybe." Before I could answer, Ethan appeared behind me, calm as ever, holding Aiden's water bottle. "We should go," he said. "We didn't talk the whole drive home." That night I watched him from across the table. He looked almost peaceful, like someone who had already made every decision he needed to. I couldn't eat. "If you have something to say," I whispered finally, "say it." He looked up slowly. "I will. When it matters." "When's that?" He smiled faintly. "Soon." He rinsed his mug, placed it upside down beside mine, and went to bed. I stared at the counter for a long time before realizing something. The mugs were on opposite sides again, like parallel lines never touching. I spent the next few days pretending I hadn't seen that word, courthouse. It sounded too official, too final, like the kind of place people go when there's no coming back. I told myself maybe it was about property taxes or some paperwork for his job. Anything but what I knew it really meant. Ethan didn't act angry. He didn't even act different. That was the worst part. He was polite, helpful, present, but in a way that made me feel invisible. He'd ask if I needed groceries, if Aiden's shoes still fit, if the utilities were paid. Every question sounded like a checklist. Every answer I gave felt like a trap. When I told Clara about it, she said, "You sound paranoid, Iris." "You haven't seen how calm he is," I said. "It's not normal calm. It's planning calm." She shrugged. "Then call him out. Force the conversation. He'll twist it back on me. He always does." Clara sighed, rubbed her temple, and said softly, "You know, you built this, right? You lied, and now he's reacting." I hated how she said it like a fact instead of a comfort. By Thursday, Ethan had moved his work setup fully into the guest room. He even brought his coffee maker in there. I told him it was ridiculous to separate everything like that. He said, "It helps keep things organized." "Organized for what?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "For what comes next." That line kept echoing in my head all night. The next morning, we drove to his mother's house. Ruth had invited us for lunch, saying she wanted to see Aiden before winter break. I didn't want to go, but Ethan insisted. "It's important," he said. "She misses him." Ruth's house was neat and quiet, the kind of silence that used to feel safe. She hugged Aiden first, held him tight, then turned to me. "You look tired, Iris." "We've been busy," I said quickly. She nodded slowly. "Ethan tells me you've both had a hard time communicating." I froze. "He said that." She gave me that careful motherly smile that wasn't really a smile. "He said he's been reflecting, sorting things properly. I think that's wise." I laughed, sharp and nervous. "You make it sound like he's preparing for something serious. Maybe he is." Her tone was mild, but my chest tightened. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I hadn't done anything unforgivable, not really. But every word I could have said would have sounded like guilt. After lunch, Ethan took Aiden outside to play while Ruth and I cleaned up. The silence stretched between us. "Finally," she said quietly. "I've always thought truth has a way of finding daylight, even when people keep closing the curtains." "What are you implying?" I asked. She looked straight at me. "That daylight's coming, whether you want it or not." I left the dishes and went outside. Aiden was drawing in the dirt with a stick, and Ethan stood nearby watching. The way he looked at me, steady, detached, made my knees feel weak. On the drive home, Aiden fell asleep in the back seat. I stared out the window while Ethan drove, his hands relaxed on the wheel. I couldn't take the quiet anymore. "What exactly are you doing, Ethan?" "Handling things properly," he said. "Properly? What does that even mean?" He didn't answer. "If you're angry, just say it." "Stop acting like a saint. I can't fix what you won't say out loud." He pulled into the driveway, parked, and turned off the car. Then he looked at me, really looked at me. "You don't fix things, Iris. You rewrite them until you forget the first draft." Before I could respond, he got out and carried Aiden inside. That night, after putting our son to bed, I stood at the kitchen counter staring at the 2 mugs, mine half full, his spotless as always. I told myself this was just another storm, one we'd ride out like before. But deep down, I felt something different this time. Finality. I checked his phone while he showered. The lock screen lit up with a reminder. Paper drop, 11:20 a.m. My breath caught. I put the phone back exactly how I found it. When he came out, towel around his shoulders, I tried to sound calm. "Big day tomorrow?" He looked at me for a moment, then said, "You could say that." "Work thing." "Personal." I laughed nervously. "Everything's personal with you lately." He smiled faintly. "Not everything." We went to bed in silence. His breathing was slow, steady, deliberate. I stared at the ceiling, wondering what kind of man plans revenge in perfect politeness. Before dawn, I woke to the sound of the front door closing. I rushed to the window, but only saw the taillights fading down the street. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the clock. 7:12 a.m. My heart wouldn't stop racing. The refrigerator hum sounded louder than usual. I looked at the counter. His mug was gone. Only mine remained. Aiden shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. "Where's Daddy going?" "Work," I said, voice shaking. "He'll be home soon." But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't true. Around noon, I called Clara again. "He's doing something today." "I don't know what." "Then find out," she said. "You can't just sit there pretending. I'm scared to know." She paused. "Then you already do." I hung up and sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling around a cold mug. I thought about every small sign I'd ignored. The folders, the printer, the quiet. It had all been leading to this. By evening, the house felt too big. I checked my phone again. No texts, no calls, just silence. I looked at Aiden's photo on the fridge. His grey eyes stared back at me, the same colour that had started this whole mess. When Ethan came home that night, he didn't look triumphant or broken, just finished. He kissed Aiden goodnight, walked past me and said quietly, "Everything's in motion now. Just be ready." "Ready for what?" I asked. He didn't turn around. For the truth to land where it belongs. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window until the sky turned pale, the streetlights flicking off one by one. Tomorrow was Friday, 11:20. Friday arrived like a storm wrapped in sunlight. I woke early, heart hammering against my ribs for reasons I refused to acknowledge. The house felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears, makes shadows sharper. Aiden was still asleep, bundled in his blanket, his little chest rising and falling like a metronome. I couldn't stop staring at him, at those grey eyes that had betrayed my carefully constructed world. Ethan was gone again, leaving 2 mugs on the counter, mine half full, his perfect and untouched as always. I wanted to spill coffee on his side just to feel some control, but I didn't. I couldn't. Clara called mid-morning, cheerful and careless. "You ready for today?" "Ready?" I echoed, my voice tight. "Do you know what he's doing?" She laughed softly, like she thought I was exaggerating. "No idea, but if it's anything like last week, he's finally serious." I ended the call and tried to focus on Aiden. We played quietly with blocks, read a book, and I made pancakes, hoping routine could somehow shield us from what I knew was coming. But every small noise made me flinch. The hum of the refrigerator, the clock ticking, the faint shuffle of papers in the study. At 11, I decided to leave the house for a walk with Aiden, hoping the air would clear my head. Ethan stayed behind. "Be back by 12, he said, calm and final. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Places that matter," he replied. I smiled nervously, but he didn't. He walked back inside, leaving the door ajar. At the park, I tried to focus on Aiden, on his small hands, his innocent laughter, the way he stacked blocks and then knocked them down, giggling. But all I could see were the folders, the spreadsheets, the quiet hum of planning that had become our life. On the drive back, I rehearsed words in my head, denials, excuses, confessions. Every possible line felt weak, inadequate. I wanted to believe Ethan would speak first, that he'd say something small, human, that I could twist back into my story. When we arrived home, I noticed Ethan's car was already gone. The driveway was empty except for mine. My stomach clenched. I carried Aiden inside, set him on the floor, and checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls, just silence. Then I saw it, a small envelope lying on the kitchen counter with my name written neatly across the top. My hand shook as I picked it up. Inside was nothing but a single piece of paper with typed words I couldn't ignore. Tower lobby, 11:20 a.m. Be present. I laughed nervously. Be present? For what? Aiden tugged at my sleeve. "Mummy, what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby, just errands," I said, forcing a smile. I set my purse down, grabbed my coat, and tried to breathe. Every instinct screamed to stay, to hide, to call someone, anyone. But part of me wanted to see this through, to face whatever Ethan had prepared. I drove downtown, Aiden strapped safely in his car seat, trying to calm my thoughts. The streets were busy, the traffic like a pulse beneath the city's skin. I kept looking at the clock, 11:05, 11:10, 11:15. My hand trembled on the wheel. The tower lobby was sleek and modern, glass walls stretching to the ceiling. People passed by, oblivious to the tension I carried. Ethan stood at the far side, holding Aiden's hand. He was calm, neat, everything in place. His suit jacket was buttoned, his tie straight. No hint of the man I had once mocked, ignored, or blamed. I tried to step forward confidently, but my legs felt heavy. Aiden tugged at my hand, sensing my tension. I whispered, "It'll be fine, sweetheart." The process server appeared suddenly, a clipboard in hand, papers stacked neatly. My eyes widened. The stack was thick, official, precise. I wanted to snatch Aiden and run, but Ethan's calm made me hesitate. He didn't look angry. He didn't yell. He just waited. "Iris Valen?" the server asked. "Yes," I said, voice trembling. "These documents are being served to you formally." I took them, feeling the weight of every page, every word, every line. My eyes scanned the first sheet, a petition for paternity and custody determination. Everything I had hidden for years was now exposed in ink, under the law, under public observation. People in the lobby began to glance over, curious. I felt their stares like knives. Aiden clung to me, his small fingers gripping my coat. I tried to smile, tried to act like this was a mistake, like somehow it wasn't real. Ethan stepped forward. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He didn't explain. He simply said, "It's done. Properly." "Properly," I whispered. "You mean, like this?" He nodded, calm, steady. Exactly like this. I could see it in the faces of the few bystanders, other parents, office workers, strangers, watching a marriage unravel in real time. They didn't know the backstory, the years of careful lies, the hidden phone messages, the grey eyes that had started it all. All they knew was the image in front of them, a woman holding her child, papers in hand, her husband standing composed, unflinching. I tried to speak, to justify, to explain. Ethan, He shook his head slightly. No, everything's clear now. Words won't fix what matters. I felt tears welling up, but I blinked them back. I couldn't cry in front of witnesses. I couldn't let them see me lose. But the papers burned in my hands, the realization heavier than any punishment I'd imagined. The process server nodded politely and handed Ethan a receipt of service. He didn't look at me. He just pocketed it, then crouched down to kiss Aiden on the forehead. My son's small eyes looked from one parent to the other, innocent, unaware of the years of deception. I couldn't even meet Ethan's gaze. I wanted to run, to take Aiden, to hide from the daylight that had finally found us. But something in me froze, the shock of finality rooting me in place. Ethan turned toward the lobby doors, hand on the doorknob. He glanced back once, not angrily, not accusatorily, but with a quiet dignity that made my stomach twist. "We follow the process now," he said softly. I wanted to scream, to beg, to tell him he had no right, that this wasn't fair. But no words came. My throat closed and all I could do was hold Aiden tighter. Strangers whispered, cameras flashed. Some people were already recording, capturing this unraveling as it happened. I could feel the heat of attention, the weight of judgment pressing down on me from all sides. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that this could still be fixed, but each page of the petition confirmed what I had hidden, documented what I had denied. Liam's role, Aiden's real paternity, the custody arrangements, all spelled out. Every lie, every omission, every calculated misstep exposed in black and white. Ethan didn't gloat, he didn't smile, he didn't accuse. He simply walked toward the elevator, calm as ever, Aiden following, the papers now officially part of our lives. I stood in the lobby, clutching the documents, feeling my carefully curated world collapse around me. The cameras clicked, strangers whispered, and I realized with a sharp, awful clarity, I had been the architect of my own downfall. I wanted to blame anyone, Liam, Clara, even Ruth, but the truth was unavoidable. It had always been me. Every lie, every secret, every choice had led to this precise moment. And Ethan had handled it perfectly, lawfully, calmly, with the quiet dignity I had never respected. I didn't know if I would ever be able to look at him the same way, or at myself. I tried to speak one last time. "Ethan, I can explain." He didn't turn back. "No explanations now," he said softly. The doors closed behind him and Aiden, leaving me standing there, frozen. I could feel the weight of every witness, every page, every lie pressing into my chest. The lobby was still, the murmurs fading. And in that silence, I understood the full magnitude of what had happened.